Good morning. We're continuing Sefer Chavetz Chaim and learning about, again, the laws of Lashon Hara when it comes to dating. What are you allowed to say and what are you not allowed to say when it comes to revealing information either to the bride or to the groom about their potential spouse that they don't know about. So yesterday and the day before we were talking about telling the bride or her family something about the groom that they didn't know, and we said when you have the 7 conditions, you could tell them if it's a very big problem with the groom. For instance, if he has some very serious medical illness that they don't know about, or if he is a heretic. And we mentioned that anytime practically doing this, one should speak to their halachic advisor who is well versed in these laws. So now we're going to talk about the opposite case, telling the groom, the potential chassan, issues about the bride or her family that he might not be aware of. When are you allowed to tell? So we're on the Tziurim Zayin. V'hu adin legalos la'chasan es inyan ha'mechutan. Same laws apply when telling the groom something about the mechutan, about the bride's family, or the father-in-law. Gam kein dina kanal. Dahainu, im hu yaidea choli hapanim sheish b'hamashudechas, achem astirin me'achasan, ein ala megalech shash isrechilas, actually yachzur b'zeh hapratim hanam, ubiyaratim beber ma'im chaim sivkat neches. If you know that the bride has some serious internal medical issue that they are hiding from the groom, they never told the groom about it, then you are allowed, you're supposed to tell the groom about this medical illness, but you have to have all of the conditions. And to know what those conditions are, please listen to our class from yesterday. V'chein, im nishma al beis ha'mechutan shelo ki hu beis pritzus. If you hear that the bride's household, where she grew up, is a house of immorality, a house of pritzus, v'davar zeh yadua shehusi b'gedol lahasai zeh amtachas hanersa, and we all know that that's a very bad thing that could lead to bad results. Gam kein tzarich legalos davar zeh. You also have to reveal this to the groom. Ubezeh ein tzarich hapratim hanal, and with that, you don't need all of the conditions. It's interesting, there were 2 cases that the Chavetz Chaim just mentioned where you do not need the conditions. Usually when you're speaking Lashon Hara, you're speaking evil about somebody, you need to have the conditions that he lists. But here you don't need. If the issue is that the girl's house is one where she grew up, one of sexual immorality, that you're allowed to tell without the conditions. And the other case was from yesterday where you know the groom is a heretic. You don't need the conditions there either. Rakshi is bonin imiu dvarav nishmoim. However, you do have to contemplate if your words will be listened to by the groom. Very often, if you share negative information with a groom, he's in love, he's not going to listen to you. So before you share the information, you have to be sure that there's a potential you have to be sure that he's going to listen to you. And because what could happen is that you'll tell him now, he's not going to listen to you, and just later on, when they get into a fight after they're married, he's like, oh, I should have listened to David, he told me you were no good nick. And that will just be rechilas. Okay. Ches, number 8. Aval imhu makir lefia inyan shamachutan meram el chasan beinyan hanadan o hamazainis ma'od u'ma'od tzarich lehisyashav v'davar kodem shigal zel chasan ki tzarich lezehaber pratim. If you suspect, or not if you suspect, if you know that the father-in-law is cheating the groom, he promised that if you marry my daughter, I'm going to hire you for my business, and I'm going to give you $1 million. And I'm going to provide for you for the next 10 years, and the groom is very happy about that, but you know that the guy is in debt and doesn't have any money. What do you do? So you have to tell the groom, but you need all of these conditions. 1, sheyiz bonen heitev shehu meramehu be'emes, tahanu sheyakir bebeira es tivo hara, o es gadol anyuso, o sheshamim men beferish she'enam avtiach rak livnim. You have to be sure that the father-in-law is actually trying to cheat the groom. How would you know? You have to know that he's an evil person, and this is what he does, or he's actually very poor, he's in debt, and he can't possibly provide what he's saying, but you have to be sure of it. Maybe you're his accountant. Or also, you heard him say that he's not going to, he's not going to provide, he's not going to fulfill what he promised to the groom. V'lo yachle tekef es ha'inyan b'daito lachshav al malchut and b'mipnei shehu ein takef ha'mamata b'vada le'yitin lo hanadan o hamazonos שהבטיח, תהלו אנרוים כמה פעמים שאנשים כאלו משלמים נסם. הסחייבו some yoser min הבעלי הבתים הגבוהים. Because however, just because the guy the father-in-law has, he's not the best at his job, let's say. He has a job, but he's not so great, and you don't think he could possibly afford what he's promising. That's not enough of a reason to tell the father-in-law that he's not going to pay his debts and pay him what he owes him. Because he says we find many times that people who don't have great jobs and aren't the best at their jobs, they pay their debts more than the very wealthy people. So you're only allowed to tell if you know for sure that the father-in-law is not going to give what he promised the groom, and the fact that he's just like doesn't have the best job is not enough of a reason. 2. You have to be clear that the chassan that the groom, would still not proceed with the shidduch if he knew about this information. Sometimes the groom, he's just trying to get all the money he can out of the father-in-law. However, if this really doesn't matter to the shidduch, the groom's going to get married anyway, then you shouldn't tell him. However, unless that by you telling him, he's going to go through with the marriage, the groom, but by you telling the groom, he'll be able to figure out a way to get from the father-in-law what he was promised. Then you're allowed to tell. But if it's not going to make any difference, and the groom is going to get cheated, but he'll still marry, he's in love, then he can't tell. And number 3, we had a similar condition yesterday, that also the chassan can't be fooling, the groom can't be fooling the bride and her father-in-law at all. The imgama chasam rameo be'eze enyan sheyeh yatzeh bezeh upashad asur legalos lo. Because if the groom is also cheating the father-in-law, if he's lying to the father-in-law about something, so then it works out. The father-in-law is lying to the groom, and the groom is lying to the father-in-law. Seems like a great way to start a marriage. And you also need the other conditions we mentioned earlier. One should not be quick to go and share this information. Rather, one has to sit and contemplate that this is an appropriate scenario to share this information. And if I could just add, in addition to contemplating, one should always discuss this with a halachic authority who is well versed in the laws of evil speech, because, like we said, one could easily ruin someone's life by sharing inappropriate information or by not sharing information when they should. And with that, we conclude. And it looks like we have about 2 more classes before we're done with Sefer Chavetz Chaim. So thank you to everyone who's been listening this entire time. And have a beautiful day. And yeah.